This episode is brought to you by the Dance Vocab app, the world's first and only app designed with the aspiring dancer in mind. Learn and practice hundreds of individual dance moves across multiple styles, anywhere, anytime. The perfect way to practice outside of dance class. Get the app for free today on iOS, Android, and dancevocab.com. I had the pleasure of sitting down with the founder of the Dance Vocab app, Ray, and I must say he's got a very special product not found anywhere in the world right now. This app is perfect for all sorts of dancers, whether you're a recreational dancer, a competitive dancer, or even a pre-professional or professional dancer who's looking for an alternate way to train and learn proper terminology from a wide range of dance styles. Make sure to download the app today, and promise you won't be disappointed. Have you ever been in a situation where your honesty and loyalty has been tested as an artist? Or have you ever felt like you were not qualified for a job but yet took the job anyway? Well, we've got the episode for you. This is episode 30 called Integrity, Honesty, and Loyalty with Thomas L. Colford. It's a brand new week and welcome to another episode of the Unplugged podcast presented by the Dance Plug Toronto. My name is Roy Reynoso and I'm a former dance studio manager turned dance entrepreneur and advocate. Each week, we bring you a dance artist with stories of life experiences working in the industry, along with opinions about current events and hot topics in the city. Before we hear from today's guest, here are a few events and updates that we would like to share. Blackout Fam is hosting a workshop with Castro from the PAC New York City and Regulators on November 3rd at Artist Play Dance Studio. For only $35, you can take a 3-hour popping workshop with one of the best in the business. For more information, you can visit at blackout.fam on Instagram. The KTD Fall Intensive featuring Kirsten Sullivan, David Norsworthy, and Kylie Thompson is going down at the Canadian Contemporary Dance Theatre on November 5th from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Get 3 2-hour in-depth workshops in contemporary, partnering, and improv. For more information, you can visit at Kylie Thompson Dance on Instagram. Elevate TO, Toronto's newest dance showcase built for emerging choreographers, premieres for the first time on Saturday, November 9th at Revival. Tickets are available now. You can visit at elevate.to for tickets and for more information. New for 2020, we will be highlighting a dance video each month to showcase and recognize the dancers, choreographers, and producers involved for their tremendous work. We are looking for videos that stand out from the norm. Concept videos that think out of the box from set location to cinematography to choreography. Keep an eye out on our Instagram page for more details. This week, we sat down with Thomas L. Colford. Thomas was born on the island of Cape Breton in Nova Scotia, where he began his artistic pursuits. At 16, his dedication to growth and deep desire to perform brought him to Toronto, where he began his professional career. Some favorite credits of Thomas's include a leading role in Season 2 of Backstage, which you can find on Family Channel, Netflix, and Disney Worldwide, dancing for musical artists like Shawn Mendes and Janet Jackson, and working with emerging artists from his hometown in Cape Breton and choreographing for TV projects like Mr. D, and musical artists like Scott Hellman. Thomas is a versatile performer with training in film and stage acting, a plethora of dance disciplines, singing, and several musical instruments. He has trained across the continent with Cadence School of Ballet, the Male Initiative, the Pulse on Tour, and Mather Dance Company. From stage to screen, Thomas shows no sign of slowing down, always pursuing growth, art, and fun, all while remembering his mantra, made with purpose. In his episode, we talk about having integrity working in the industry. When should your personal ethics take over when it comes to making tough decisions? And his event called Interpose, and the effects of the event 3 years later. There's a lot of really great content in this episode, some of which may be hard to listen to. Wherever you're listening to this episode from, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Here's Integrity, Honesty, and Loyalty with Thomas L. Colford. Made with purpose and originally from Nova Scotia, I am joined by Mr. Beckett himself from Backstage.
Oh, no.
Thomas.
Oh, can we go back?
Thomas L. Colford. We got to get that L in there.
You got to get that on there. Hey, how you doing, Roy?
I'm good, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on it.
I think it's great that we finally had an opportunity now to sit down because it's been a while since I've seen you. We actually used to live together, for those of you who don't know.
Way back in the day.
Yeah. We usually start the show with, like, obviously the same question that I ask everyone. And why don't you talk about your journey in dance and maybe give a brief history and then events leading up to where you are today?
Sure, yeah. I'm originally from Nova Scotia. I grew up in the island of Cape Breton. Beautiful place, beautiful people, limited resources. When I was about 16, I graduated, moved to Toronto literally the next day. Hopped off the plane, went to train with Dark Dance. I think it was called the Right One program at that point. But yeah, Lennon, he was one of the first people I got to work with, introduced me to a lot of people through his program. About 2 weeks later, I auditioned for something called the Male Initiative, which I dove into and committed to for 3.5, 4 years of my life, something like that. A year into Toronto, I got the opportunity to go train at Mather Dance Company in California. Went there, got to work with Blake McGrath, Shannon Mather, Shannon's incredible faculty. Did like the convention stuff while I was out there, like Pulse on Tour, Velocity, Jump, that kind of thing. Came back about a year later, 2014, Toronto, and signed with DaCosta and started working. And then through that, eventually got more into acting, and now I kind of do whatever creative things I feel inspired to do. And along the way, I've gotten to work with commercial dance, got to work with people like Shawn Mendes, Janet Jackson, Imagine Dragons, Kaisa, Walk Off the Earth, MMVAs a couple times, music videos, musical theater, stage stuff, industrials, busking once for fun. Shout out Yukon's Best Dance Crew. Sorry, none of it's Best Dance Crew. Not a real thing. So yeah, that's kind of an overview.
Great.
Yeah, man.
I know you had mentioned a few names earlier. Lennon was one of them. Shannon Mather?
Shannon Mather, yeah.
Like McGrath, Shamar Blackwood. Any other individuals that maybe played a key role in your development as an artist?
I mean, like, I would first and foremost really have to take it to Shavar, just because he played a fundamental role in like climatizing to the city and like a lot of just figuring out who I was as a person. Like, I was 16 when I moved here. I feel very fortunate that I fell into the Male Initiative so quickly, and that really feels like a huge blessing, because not only did he provide so much guidance and inspiration and like shape me as a dancer and make me very aware of my what I needed to work on, and helped me not just know about them, but helped me learn how to do something about them, and successfully, I'd say so. Through him, I got to work with Leon a lot. He definitely made a huge contribution in a different way, but like he encouraged me a lot. He pushed me a lot. Alvin Clantes on the contemporary side, on the concert dance kind of side of things, he was one of the first people to really pay me some attention and like take me seriously, and he gave me my first opportunity to do contemporary in Toronto, and the first show contract I ever got, he was the one who connected me to it and kind of backed me up and referred me for it. Courtney Bowman, I trained with her a lot my first year in Toronto on the technical side of things. Shannon and Blake, absolutely. Like, they really changed me on the technical side and really gave me the confidence and solidity in what I had to offer. I would also say that the people I met through TMI, like Aaron and Dom, Lucas Malkowski, those three especially they were kind of guys I always, and still do, look at as these like superheroes and like big brother kind of guys that I'm like, man, I don't know, they're still so cool in my mind. They're so talented, and they've always kind of been people I've looked up to and used to keep going. So they're people through TMI. Andrew Draggart, I didn't meet him through TMI, but he was there, and like he's another one of those people I've always looked up to, always been inspired by. And then like more recently, like Caroline Torti has been probably the biggest influence on me in the last 2 years. She's someone that I've gotten to work with a lot on the creative side and learned so much just about like how to make the thing happen, how to be the most professional person in the room, how to have great ideas and execute them, how to make sure everyone feels included and is in the zone where they can succeed. And she's just taught me a lot about like running the show and showing up and doing a damn good job, so
that's great.
Yeah. Acting side of things, Stephen Yaffe's like one of my favorite coaches in the city, teaches at Louis Beaumander Acting Studio. He's been a huge influence. Anyone who's looking to, like, any dancers looking to start learning to act, like, Louis Beaumander is a very, like, friendly studio approach that it doesn't feel like overwhelming if you're dipping your toes in it. And then Jane Moffat as well, a great place to kind of get started, and someone who I've learned a lot from as well. There's a lot of other people, but if you're dipping your toes, I would just throw those shout outs there for any dancers looking to learn some acting.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
Yeah, man.
One thing before we get into the bulk of the main subject of this particular episode is what influenced your decision to move from Cape Breton here to Toronto? Did you make any visits to Toronto prior?
Yeah, I did. I remember being like 6 years old and being like, man, I can't wait to live here. That was the first time I was 5. I was almost 6. So I was 5 years old the first time I came to Toronto. And I like remember that young being like, I can't wait to leave and live in places like this. Yeah, always been attracted to the city in general. And as I got older and it became clear that the only way I was going to be remotely happy in life would be in the arts, Toronto seemed like the most sensible first step. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of had that idea of like, maybe Toronto for dance. I came out here summer of 2011. Yeah, summer 2011. I came out. I did like OIP Dance Studio Summer Intensive, which if you know anything about that, you know why I'm saying it that way. But I did learn a lot. I got to come take Shavar's class, and he had a sub in who was Lennon, who both those people are people I ended up working with pretty early when I first moved. I was assisting at this thing out in Vaughan, same trip. So I came back from that honestly feeling really overwhelmed and like I'm not sure if I can really do this. And kind of like had this crisis within myself of like, oh man, like this is a big city. This is a lot going on. there's a lot of people that know way more than I do and are, way better than I am. Who do I think I am trying to do this, right? So I was kind of on the fence, which is weird because my whole life I was like, yeah, this is what I'm doing, And suddenly I had, for the first time in my life, doubt about if I could do it or not. And then I remember my brother came home. He was already living in Toronto at university. And he came home at Christmas. And we were like playing Assassin's Creed or some shit like that. I don't know. It's like, it was either Assassin's Creed or like Lego Harry Potter. It was like one of those two things. But we were just talking and he was like, like what I'm doing is really hard, but like what you're trying to do, like if you want to dance in Toronto, like that's kind of like insane. Like I think that might be one of the hardest routes an artist can take in that city. And I was like, okay. And he was like, yeah, like you have to be really good. And I remember like specifically that moment just being like, okay, then I got to get really good. Like I want to do this and I know I'm not really good. And I need to figure out and like devote myself to making that the goal and like just focus on growth and like figuring out what I have to offer and how to grow that into something that other people can use, right? So I came to Toronto with my March break. I like did a bunch of research. I looked up at the time like the studios would have been OIP, City Dance Corps, Metro Movement. Those were the ones I knew of anyway. And I kind of noticed City Dance Corps was the only one offering classes during the day other than like ballet. So I filled out the schedule to do like 3-4 hours there in the morning, afternoon. OIP would start around 5, did whatever classes they had that night. And I did that every day, like danced 6-7 hours that whole trip. Like the same way people go to LA and make the most of it, like that was my goal for Toronto. Like go to there, make the most of it, see if I like it, see if there's teachers I'm excited. And I was so inspired and so fulfilled by that trip. I came back. I was like, I need to be here. There's any doubt that may have remained. This is what the next step looks like for me. And I have to get there and I want to be there tomorrow. But I got to like, finish my commitments and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did like another trip in April. For like a week And then I moved June 10th, didn't stay for my prom, didn't stay for my graduation ceremony. It was just like, get me on the plane, let's go. Because like, aside from that, there's just not the same resources out East. And like, you don't have, there's a lot of people making effort to bridge that gap. But at the end of the day, there's fewer people, there's less money. It's a poor part of the country. There's just like, you don't have the same things available to you that you do here. Like the studios, you can sign your children up for studios here where they will guaranteed work with some of the best professionals in North America. If they aren't already faculty at that studio, they're being brought in on a regular basis, right? Like that's not a reality in that part of the world. And there's not to say there's not knowledge and that there's not quality service being provided, but there's quality and then there's premium, Yeah. So it's a different beast. And, so being drawn to all that Toronto does have to offer, from a growth perspective, from an inspiration perspective, from an opportunity perspective, it just made a lot of sense.
So you were pretty much a sponge when you first moved here, eh? You were just taking in everything.
I think you got to curate what environments you participate in, because I think whether you realize it or not, you are a sponge, and like you can consciously do it and like double down on that. But even when you're not consciously making the effort to absorb like that, you're still absorbing from everything around you, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta curate it, and you gotta be careful about that. And I try to do that any space that I show up in. Yeah.
When you first got here, were there any things that you had to learn the hard way? I mean, you being 16, I think if I was 16 moving to a big city like this, I would not have been prepared for anything.
Man, there's a lot of, I mean, I can't think of anyone in my mind that has entered the industry smoothly. And if they have, it definitely wasn't on their own. I was pretty lucky that I was already pretty independent, which helped a lot. Like I already was cooking my meals. I was already doing my schedule. I was doing my laundry. I was doing cleaning. Like it wasn't all the things on like the domestic end of things were things I've been doing for years. So that wasn't shocking. That wasn't tricky. I just remember like walking everywhere was such a big deal to me when I first moved here. Cause like there's not really public transit in Cape Breton. Everyone has a car and everything's kind of spaced out, so it doesn't make sense. Like, everything would be like a 40-minute walk away to like the next area, not like to where you're going. Yeah. So, I remember getting here and being like, oh, I have to walk 10 minutes to go pick up this pizza. Oh, how am I gonna, I better stretch. I'm just being very precious. And like, I think that lasted like 2 weeks being like, okay, get over it.
It's the norm.
That's the norm. And like, I mean, now I walk everywhere, but I remember that being like a huge shift in terms of like industry. Like I came from the mindset of like, you just go and you put your best foot forward and you give it your best shot. And I think I kind of naively just like, yeah, that's what I need to do. I'm just gonna, and not to discredit that, because I think that mindset is correct, with the asterisks. You need the awareness of the environment you're in. So there was a lot of times where like I thought I knew what was going on and just went headfirst into it instead of taking the time before being like, okay, go for it, dive into it. I didn't have that like sensibility to gauge my surroundings and figure out, oh, I'm new here. I don't know how things are done here. I should take a minute to figure out, oh, these people look like they know what they're doing. Why? And like ask those kind of questions. And I think that there's like an ignorance from that like people don't appreciate, right? And like people work really hard, especially in professional settings, to curate the environment. So if you're kind of walking in being like, yeah, I see you're doing something, I'm sure it's great, like let's do it, like people don't really appreciate that all the time. And I'm glad that some people kind of took that as like a charming East Coaster young guy kind of thing. But I think if I did that now as a 23-year-old, people would have very little tolerance for that. So I'm lucky I people showed me a little grace with that, and the people who didn't, I've since gotten the chance to make a second impression on. But yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest thing. It's just like, not assuming you already know what's happening everywhere. Yeah.
Before we get into the next question, are there any things that you want to say to your fellow Cape Bretoners who are dancers who might want to move here to Toronto?
I mean, I've said it to them. I think the biggest thing for anyone who, I used to spend a lot of time like trying to be like, hey, everyone, like, you know, you could do this. And like, if you do this, you could actually like, I think you could make a run at this. And I think you've got what it takes. And like, just the people in general that dance, but maybe weren't thinking of it as a career at that point in their life. And what I've kind of realized since is like, if someone's not willing to put in the work, they shouldn't do it. Asterisks on that though, what I do think is really important is letting people know that it's a possibility, because sometimes that can be like game changing for someone to realize like maybe they have that desire and they just think it's impossible and there's no sense in even considering it as an idea, let alone taking any action towards it. And I think there's something really powerful about being like, I see potential in you, and that doesn't mean you need to do anything, but I want to make sure you're aware that like there's something there worth cultivating. And then kind of leaving that with them, because anything beyond that, I don't know if you're really doing people a favor at that point. Like, I think people need to ask for help. I think taking that step out of the process is often detrimental to someone's growth and often detrimental to just them as a person, right? Like I have a friend who says ASK is like an acronym for affirm someone's kindness. And it's like, if you don't ask, one, how much do you really want it? And two, do you really find out who has your back? And do you really find out who's supporting you? And like, if you're just always offering that up front, there's an exchange that gets taken out of that. There's a humility in asking for help that is necessary to maintain that balance of like what that thing is. Like, if you don't acknowledge that I have something that will benefit you, it tends to be a recipe for people taking things for granted, or people kind of like fucking themselves in different ways, you know? So I don't necessarily do what I used to do of being like, here's your next 10 steps of what I think would help you get closer to this. And like, I used to be very like eager about that. And now it's more like, hey, I believe in you. And like, if you ever want to do something about that, let me know how I can help.
Nice.
Yeah.
So 7 years later, 7 years later, you've obviously done a whole bunch of stage performances. You've been on TV, you've done commercials. I think you've done it all. And I think you're still like, stuff, and I think you're still getting started.
Thanks, man. I hope so.
What is it like being on a film, TV, video set compared to being on stage?
I think the biggest difference, I mean, it's different for everyone, but in my experiences and probably a lot of people's experiences, I think the prep is a lot of what, like the actual process. Because once you get down to doing the thing, there's like technical differences that you need to be aware of, obviously, but at the end of it, you're still just like bringing your art to a place, but the timelines are very different, and the like you said, the process is very different. Like stage, it's all about hours and hours and hours of like, you know, you come together, you curate this thing, you develop it, you have what it starts as, it keeps moving, and then you land at, this is what the thing is. We've thought about the details, or we've thought of as many details as we can with the time that the budget has given us, and we are confident that this is what we need to do, and we're going to go out there and everyone knows what they have to do, and they're going to deliver it, and we are all counting on each other to deliver exactly what was said, so we execute this thing that we have planned that is exactly what we want it to be, or what we're able to do in that timeline. Film, it's like, I mean, one thing I love about film is that the process doesn't really end ever until it's out there. And then once it's out there forever. Terrifying. But, you know, even, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So you get the material. It's nice, like there's bigger budget things that have been in Toronto lately where they have had a budget to properly rehearse things and like accommodate dancers for their time, and like specifically like a lot of the films that I've been through in the last year. But like the first dance film I ever did, we had one rehearsal day for 2 hours. We learned a duet, and then we went and shot the movie. And we were often learning what we were about to shoot while the camera was being set up.
Wow.
And then they're like, okay, so we're like a little low on time, so you're going to get one take. Okay, action. Like, okay, cool. So like, I think one of the things, like the general mindset of like readiness and preparedness, what that means in film. I mean, I think if you're being professional, that's the attitude you're bringing to most situations, unless like, there's asterisks on everything. There's exceptions to every rule, but like you're showing up and your level of preparedness needs to be like, you individually, what you've brought into that day is already ready to go. It's going to change as soon as the director gets there. It's going to change if you're working with the choreographer. The producers might have a say. There might be something that goes wrong. Someone might drop something that changes how they shoot it, and now you have to adjust everything you had planned for that day. So it's like things like that where like your readiness, anything can happen. Like that's true in any situation, but in film, there's so much money. There's such a short time. Even when you have a budget, it's being used so thinly. Like you don't have money to waste. You don't have time to waste. And like your readiness needs to be so high that they can count on you. And that's what brings you back, right? That's the main thing. I don't care how good of a dancer you are. If you can't do that, you're not going to get asked back by those people. On top of that, it's that thing of this is what I was saying before, is it never stops till it's out. You're always collaborating. The thing is always evolving. So you come in with what you have from rehearsal. The director sees it. He's already changing it. She's already changing it. The producer comes in. She's already changing it. He's already changing it. The network then gets it. And they decide, oh man, I don't know how I feel about that. So the take that everyone felt really good about is suddenly X'd off the possibilities, and now you have these other takes that maybe we didn't put as much time into because we were all so confident in this one being the one, or we did put time in but there's a reason why the other one was the one, and now we're choosing from our second set of options. And then you're getting to the actual editing process, which hopefully you have an editor that understands how to edit dance. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes their idea is very different than how, not to say it's not as good, but it's very different than how the dancer or the choreographer wants the work to be seen. They're looking at different priorities sometimes. Often they are. And then that's another level of collaboration and curation. So sometimes you finish what you're doing, you're like, damn, I can't wait to get that. That's going to be my reel. Like, that's amazing. I'm so stoked to get this. And then you see it and you're like, why the fuck is that the take? Where is this? Oh, like I literally did a music video one time where we shot this whole thing. And then I guess they decided that they were like, it looked too similar to the last video that the artist put out. So I shit you not, green screened over everything in every shot except the artist with animation. So all the shots and all the locations, all the different dancers became animation of just like dollar bills with wings on them and like things like that. And it's like, where's the dance? Where's the shot? Like, until it's out, it's not done evolving. And that's a really beautiful thing, an exciting thing. And I love that about film. But sometimes your expectations don't take that into account. And you can end up being like, oh, I'm kind of disappointed. So I would say that's the main difference. Because like stage, when you go to stage, what you see is what you get. You know, things go wrong. But like everyone has the plan. They stick to it. The plan doesn't really ever exist with film. And it's not really decided until it's already out. Like you kind of make your plan looking at the product.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone who's still working in the industry, was there ever an instance where you had to question your truthfulness and honesty? And, you know, and if so, like, how did you curb that with proper control?
To be blatantly honest, I always thought I was really good at speaking my mind, because when things were whack, I would generally raise my voice and speak my mind. And then I had this realization around my 20th birthday that what I thought I was doing, I wasn't doing. And I was kind of lying to myself and like I was very good at doing that when I didn't care about the other person's opinion. And I kind of started to realize how many times I held my tongue or didn't say anything with people that I cared about, and people that I respected or looked up to, or people I hoped to work with one day. Yeah, it was this feeling of, am I really keeping it real? Am I really being honest? Am I honoring my truth and what I feel? And on the other side of it, what am I allowing to happen? Like, what am I complicit in with my silence? You know? And it's just kind of really looking at like what it means to care about someone, and what it means to show up. And like those, like showing up even was a new concept to me. Beyond, like, to me, I was like, oh yeah, you show up and you work hard. That's what it means. That's what a good artist does. They show up, they give it their all, they leave, you know? And like, I was leaving the me out of that process. I was letting whatever the situation called for allow me to be malleable to it, which from a skills perspective is something we should all strive for. From what you have to offer in your toolbox, you should be malleable. But you as a person, and your personality and your integrity and your truth, those aren't like malleable things. Those are things that can grow and evolve, but those are not things that should, in my opinion, alter to cater to every situation, right? And so what I realized was, taking it back to your question, I was doing that. I was really allowing myself to fit into how other people saw me and what they need me to do. And when I disagreed with something, I keep my mouth shut because I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to confront them in a way that felt safe, you know? And I don't think I was conscious of that, but on an unconscious level, subconscious level, that's really what it was, is I didn't feel safe raising my voice because I wanted and felt like I needed their acceptance and their validation so desperately that it was too high of a risk to speak my mind and lose that. And so I had this crisis of like, okay, that's finally moving that from the subconscious to the conscious, being like, man, that's what I've been doing. Am I okay with that? And, you know, I could forgive myself for what I did in the past because I was ignorant to that. But now that I can process it that way and see it and call it what it is, I can't move forward and be okay with that. You know? That's the thing. It's like, once you have the knowledge, you are accountable, right? So I kind of had to change my approach, and a lot of people did not like that. There's a lot of people, I don't even think it was necessarily the behavior that they didn't like, but they didn't like that it was different from how they had come to know me. And so this foundation of what they felt was our relationship was kind of rocked. And some people, we needed time to kind of figure that out. It took some time apart. Years later, we were able to come back with like a new understanding and a new respect and like find new footing. Other people, it was just kind of a write-off. And there are other people who like took to it and were like, damn straight, that's what's up, you know? But I definitely have experienced that. And I hope when anyone experiences that, they hold themselves accountable to make that change, because it's okay to have been wrong, but once you're aware of the mistakes you've made, that's on you, right? Yeah.
It's awesome. I feel like I'm at that particular point right now.
I feel like every 7 years, everyone hits a different version of that dilemma, you know?
Yeah. And
if you're seeking growth and you want to do all that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I hear you, bro.
Have you ever felt like you were not qualified for a job and still ended up doing it anyway?
Yeah, man.
Does it still happen today?
Yeah, man. I'm a big believer of exceptions to every rule. I'll get into that, but like, fake it till you make it. And that does not mean lie to the person. I think people say fake it till you make it, and they hear that and they're like, oh yeah, you just say yes to whatever and you do whatever and blah, blah, blah. I use it as the answer to that imposter syndrome that a lot of us feel. You know, you enter a space and you're like, I don't belong here. What the fuck? How did I'm gonna fuck this up.
Yeah.
And those are the moments when I go, oh, fake it till you make it. I don't think you're actually faking it, but I think it's something that helps me stop caring about if I'm qualified and just focus on the work. You know what I mean? I would never be like, oh, you need someone who can like High dive? Sure, no problem. I can figure that out. I'm sure there's a YouTube tutorial. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But like, at the end of the day, you know what you're capable of. And if your fear is holding you back from that, that's something that helps me kind of quiet that voice. I just think you learn by doing.
100%.
And so if you need to ask yourself, am I actually not qualified or am I just intimidated? And a lot of the time it's intimidation. Like, I literally went and did my recital at my dance school in Cape Breton, where I was like not really knowing how to point my toes correctly still. And like almost exactly a year later to the day, got asked to dance on the MMVAs.
Wow.
And I showed up to my first rehearsal, 17, dancing. I look around the room. Leon Blackwood's there. Ophilio's there. Rob's there. Like, at Dancer Rob. All these people that I, at that point, idolize, right? And like still have, like, look up to their talent and their creativity. And I'm like, I'm this fucking kid from Cape Breton. What the fuck? How, like... and the intimidation was there, 100%. And the thing is, though, is I did it. I did a good job. I'm not saying I did what they did, but I did the job. And I learned so much from that. And the value of what I took away from that brought up what I had to offer the next job. And doing that over and over and over again, saying yes to the thing I'm afraid of, not the thing that I'm lying about or the thing that I'm actually not qualified. Because I think there's this whole fucked up dance thing of like, are you really ready? Well, you know what? If the choreographer asked you to do it, they think you're ready, and that should be enough. You don't know why you're there. They know why they want you there. Maybe you're there to make the OGs step up because they kind of get lazy in their rehearsals. Or not saying that about any of those people, but like maybe that's a reason. Maybe there's a psychological reason. Maybe they like the guy that they would normally get isn't available and they just desperately need someone with that look, and you're the only person who can do it. You have no idea what their reason is, but if you can't trust them enough to trust their decision, you shouldn't work with them. And that goes for any situation to this day. It's like, if I don't trust someone, I'm not going to work with them. But if I trust them and I trust their output and I trust what they do and what I've heard about them and what I've seen from their process, them asking me is enough to do it. Because I'm going to assume they know what they're doing, and I know I'm going to show up and work my ass off. And that's really it. This whole thing of like, well, like these people have done this, or you haven't even done that, or like you're too young, or like you haven't trained enough in that style. If someone thinks you can do it, and it's someone that you trust, that you see as an authority, just go fucking do it. You're going to learn so much. You're going to come out of it 10,000% better. And you're going to, like, those are the experiences that build you. It's like those are your marathons. Those are your equivalent of those like training periods. Like, I think one experience like that is worth a year of drop-in classes. Wow. You know, like in terms of what you gain in knowledge. So like, don't back away from those. That's a very roundabout way to land there, but we got there. We landed that plane, Roy.
Do you think a lot of that stems from just the overthinking of the moment?
I think there's a part of that, but I do think the larger issue is the amount of shame we do have in the dance community, in the industry. There's a lot of, you're not a real dancer till, oh well, you can't call yourself professional yet. Oh well, you're not, like, there's a lot of opinions and a lot of ideas, and like people feel very entitled to tell you where you fit in. And I don't think I'm not saying people shouldn't have opinions, but I don't think that means you ever have to listen to them unless you've deemed that an opinion that you should listen to.
Yeah.
Like there's this exercise, it's I believe it's from Brené Brown. Maybe I'm mixing up my head, but she's a researcher on shame, and she's a brilliant author, and she has a lot of great books. You should go check her out. But one thing she says, like, have a list of 5 people whose opinions matter to you, because you will always get opinions, and people are always going to have something to say. And if you know in your mind whose opinions actually matter to you, it's a lot easier to sort through the BS that's out there, right? So my thing is, like, when people come at you, you know, be careful who you ask advice from. Be careful, like, if you, I got offered this job, I don't know if I should take it. This, I'm feeling like this. if you are like listing your insecurities to someone who is also insecure about those things, chances are they're going to be like, oh my God, yeah, no, you cannot do that. That would be catastrophic, because they have the same fear you have. But if you go to someone, and like often it's someone who's been around longer, or maybe it's someone who's just completely out of the industry. Sometimes the best advice comes from someone who can just so far removed, they don't see all the bullshit politics and things like that, right? Like they're just like, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't care how scared you are. You could go dance on a fucking TV show. Go do it. Like, sometimes it's so black and white when you remove yourself from the industry. And like, you know, every situation is different. So you need to know who your 5 people are. But I do think a lot of it is shame and other people's opinion, and being worried of like, what are they going to think? Am I going to lose followers? Is this teacher going to look down on me now? Is this person going to think I'm whack for doing that? I don't want to risk even the 0.0008% chance that this choreographer would be offended by me doing this, and I really want to work with them. And it's like, if that person takes that 0.0008% chance of finding a way to be offended by that, do you really want to work with them?
Yeah.
Like, figure out what you're excited about, figure out what you want to do. And if there's no real reason, like, just go do it. We're not like, no one's going to die. Like,
yeah,
you being good instead of great is not gonna, no one's gonna lose sleep over that, as much as we should always aspire to be fucking excellent. Don't be afraid to go out and be okay, because those are often the experiences that make you fucking amazing.
100%. And I know I've been on the opposite side of that spectrum, where people have come up to me and asked, and just asked my opinion on certain things. So something simple as like maybe a job opportunity that they're going to get. Like my response all the time is like, what do you have to lose?
100%.
You know what I mean? You have so much to gain. Even if you don't get it, there's always something you can take away from that.
And from what you think you have to lose, how much of that is legitimate and how much of that is insecurity and fear? Because it's really easy to come up with a long list of reasons not to do something, but if you fact check them, how many of them still exist? Right?
Yeah.
You get it.
Have you ever been in a situation where your honesty and your loyalty has been tested?
Yeah, man. I think that goes hand in hand with if you have integrity and you're approaching the industry with integrity, like that's gonna happen. And that's not something that's not a if it's gonna happen, it's a when it's gonna happen. And it's not like a, oh, I did it once, now I'm good. It's like every experience you need to show up with that level of honesty ready to go. And hopefully you're all on the same page, but like you need to speak up. And if things are fucked, you need to just call it out. There's a professional and responsible and thoughtful way to do that. And there is a dramatic, chaotic way to do that. And I think that is something that a lot of people can ask themselves, which they're contributing. There's a really thoughtful way to bring something fucked to someone's attention that leaves a possibility for growth and change and learning to occur and have an actual vulnerable, productive conversation. And there's a way to do it where you throw everything into chaos and people are so alarmed and their armor is so high up and they're just trying to not faint because they're so overwhelmed by this moment that of course you're not going to make anything better. And I do think like something that has been happening as long as I've added anyone on Facebook from Toronto is these fucking call out posts where you just at someone, and I mean it happens on Instagram now, but you just at someone and you just be like, I don't like this and this and this and this and that's my opinion, and if you care you're going to change everything because I know what's right. And it's like, I'm not saying they aren't making good points, but how is that going to be productive? Because suddenly you have someone in the situation where they're either correct or they are a fraud. That is the position that is often put at these people. It's like you either admit I'm right and you have no idea what you're talking about, or you can defend yourself. And at the end of the day, the actuality and the reality of all these situations are so nuanced. And you don't have space for a nuanced conversation on social media. Once in a blue moon, maybe. Definitely not if they start that way. So like, my thing is like, yes, you always, like, I always speak up when I see shit like that, since becoming aware of needing to do that. But sometimes that means waiting till the job's over. Sometimes that means look, there's so much happening, nothing can change. This is really fucking unprofessional and annoying, but no one's in danger, so I can wait. Sometimes people are in danger, and you literally need to come up to the choreographer, director, whoever, and be like, listen, I need to talk to you right now. It's very important. Can we just step outside for a second? Sometimes it's waiting till the end of rehearsal when everyone else is left to like speak your mind. Sometimes it's writing a message and then waiting 3 days to see if you still feel that way, and then editing it, and then checking with your trusted friend if this is actually saying what you think it's saying, and then sending it off. But like, yeah, I've had to do that, and those are different ways that I've done that. And I do think it's really important to approach that with care and thought. I think as soon as you enter, I'm right, so it doesn't matter how I say this, I think that's a lot of problem with the world in general. There's no care in the delivery. A lot of people are saying really good shit, but the way that they put it into the world is so chaotic or toxic or self-righteous that the message gets lost because everyone is just immediately already defending themselves before they even have heard what you've said, right? And sometimes you take all those measures and people aren't ready to hear that, or they fundamentally disagree, and you just got to move on. And in those situations, I'm just like, okay, that's good to know. I'm going to remember that next time I'm asked to work with you. And I am going to say no, because I don't want to put up with that. I'm not going to encourage that. I'm not going to tolerate that. And I'm not going to help you perpetuate this behavior by being a part of it.
I think that's great and very important. I feel like so much things that I want to just talk about there because, these questions of the week that I put out every Monday, I'm like, I always think about like, okay, is this delivery right? Is this particular question, written in a way that people won't take the wrong way, you know?
Well, it's interesting because like I always see them come up, and like sometimes, I don't think this is intentional, but sometimes it does kind of feel like you're leading to a specific destination. And maybe that's something to reflect on like, am I saying this because I think this is the kind of result that we're going to get, or am I putting this out in a really neutral place that we can see where people take it?
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't end up being as specific as what you're hoping it to be, but then that's also an opportunity to take that question and be like, okay, I was hoping we'd explore this and we actually explored this, and that's interesting. Now how can I get more specific with the wording while staying neutral to hopefully explore this other area that I want to talk about? But to be honest, like I think that's few and far in between. And I also think it's also a two-way thing. If you put out a question that sounds one way, the person who receives it, like if they're being a thoughtful participant in the conversation, they can ask for clarification instead of assuming, oh, fuck that, fuck Roy, he's just, oh, no, like, I know you, maybe they don't know you, but I know you, I know how caring you are, I know how thoughtful you are, I know how much you legitimately care about this community. So, like, I see something that I'm like, oh, that kind of sounds like that. I go, oh, I don't think he really meant that. And maybe I'll ask a follow-up question. Maybe I'll ask a clarifying question. But people who like just want to like get up in arms, they're going to be like, oh man, I can't believe he said that. I'm like, well, did he really say that?
Yeah.
Or are you like connecting dots on your own and making it something it's not? Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I feel you.
I think part of it, I mean, there's so many things that I have like just going on my head. I think part of it has to do with ignorance. Part of it has to do with the biases that you already have before looking at the question for what it is.
What is your filter going into it? 100%.
Okay, so we talked about honesty, we talked about integrity, we talked about loyalty.
Yeah, man.
Let's talk about personal ethics.
Oof.
At what point do these...
You're really giving me the softball questions, right? Thanks.
At what point do these personal ethics, kind of take over, right? Especially when you're dealing with these situations or these different, topics. When do you decide to just drop everything? You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think you ever drop everything. Because if you drop everything, someone else is going to catch it. and that's usually not fair.
Yeah.
I think you need to... I mean, again, it's going back to the same thing of like, I'm right, so nothing else matters. It's like, no, that's a selfish opinion. You can have an opinion and you can be right, and that does not excuse you from your responsibilities. It does not excuse you from your commitments. I'm not saying to like leave yourself in a shitty situation, but there are honorable, considerate ways to address and change that. It's not always as fast as you want. It's not always as easy as you want, and often is extremely uncomfortable, but you need to take those steps, right? I think the problem is you need not less care in those situations. You need an extraordinary amount of care. And you need to practice your capacity to hold that much space, not just for yourself, but for everyone. Like, you need to be willing to go into the conversation. Like, I see this happen a lot, or I notice people making these kind of plans where it's like, okay, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to see if they can admit to this, but then I'm going to catch them in this, and then they said this, aha, and then they won't be able to know that, like, there's no way I can have this conversation, and I won't end up getting what I want. And, like, the truth is, you need to be willing to go into a conversation, let yourself be seen, let yourself be vulnerable, and, like, know that you actually have no control over the end of that. If you want to have a real conversation, you can't already be working towards a desired outcome. You need to go in willing to talk about what needs to be talked about, and be willing to hear what the other person says and see if that changes how you feel, and also be willing to find a solution with them. There's very few situations where a solution should be found on your own, right? And, like, I would say, exceptions to every rule, if you're in a leadership position, if you're a choreographer, director, producer, whatever, sometimes it's not that there shouldn't be more people involved in the solution, but sometimes you just don't have time. And you're like, I know this will work. I know this is something that is safe, is thoughtful, and this is how I know how to deal with it, so I'm just going to deal with it. But when you have time, and especially if you're not in one of those positions, you need to be entering the conversation being like, let's figure this out together. I will make an offer, but that's not the only option. Yeah. You know?
I think the other part of that too is just the acceptance that comes with it, right?
I think the acceptance that you have no control over how they respond.
Yes.
But that goes vice versa, in that if they go, well, this is how it is, whether you like it or not, they also have to realize that you then have a choice in how you respond to that. So, like, I would never be like, oh man, I talked to them about how, you know, it's really not cool to not have any food when we're on set for 14 days. And, oh man, it's really not cool how they're literally screaming at us and calling us pieces of shit. But, like, I talked to them about it and they don't want to do anything about it. So I guess it's okay. And I just gotta, no, in that situation, I'd be like, you know what? You don't respect me. I don't want the money anymore. Go fuck yourself, because you don't give a fuck about us. And I'm done. Like, there's a moment where you've had that conversation and you've let yourself be known, and let's say they're just, like, not willing to back down. If it's truly awful, then leave. But I mean truly awful. I'm not talking about that's annoying or I don't feel fully respected. Like, don't fuck other people over in your process. But, like, if it's dangerous and, like, inhumane, fucking leave.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, if they've made it very clear they don't give a fuck, that's on me to remember, again, I'm responsible for what I participate in. I am accountable for what I participate in. So if I don't like how they run set, I don't like that experience, I talked to them about it and they said tough shit, why would you ever work for that person again? Because I see people do that time and time again. And, like, I would rather work at McDonald's than work for some of the choreographers that I have, like, it's been like, I'm never going to work for them again.
Powerful.
Because that's what it is. Am I going to contribute to this, like this ideology and ecosystem of fucked up shit? Or, like, that's what it means to, like, stand your, like, when people go like, oh yeah, Toronto, we keep it real. Well, look, keep it fucking real. If you don't like what someone's doing, why are you supporting them with your talent, your gifts that you worked your ass off to achieve? It's not, oh, well, someone else is going to do it, so I might as well take the money. No, fuck that. Don't support the asshole. It's that simple. That'll be my quote for the podcast.
I was just about to say that. Cool. Okay, so in 2016, we got to talk about this event that you put together, which was called Interpose.
Yeah.
And you've had various representatives from all spectrums of the industry, some from unions, some who are casting directors.
We have people who,
I think it was Addie. Addie was there.
Addie was there, and she does the casting. Like, I mean, Caroline and
Brie.
Well, yeah, Caroline and Brie. I was gonna say Caroline Addie and Ophelio and Apollonia do casting all the time. Bree is more focused on acting now, but at the time she was doing a lot of casting.
Yeah.
But not as casting directors. As like a lot of the time, choreographers have to take part of the load of the casting directors. So just clarifying the terminology around that. But yeah, people involved in casting, choreographers who are working in commercial and concert contracts. We had people who were like dancer resource companies, facilities, organizations, and then unions as well. Yeah.
So to make, I mean, that event was basically like a TEDx style talk kind of thing, just to spread the knowledge about dancers' rights, among other things, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you feel like, I guess, what is it? We've come 3 years now since that event. Do you feel like we've made any progress as a community?
I think the people that have wanted to make progress and have held themselves accountable to finding progress have found that. And I think the other people who have maintained the same habits have probably found their situation hasn't changed drastically. And if I'm being like completely honest, there's probably a couple people who haven't changed a damn thing and are also doing very well for themselves, which is just the reality of luck of the draw sometimes, right?
Yeah. Would you be open to doing another one?
No, I honestly wouldn't. I have the footage. I'll probably put it up on YouTube next time I feel like it's relevant to have that conversation. But the information hasn't changed. And I don't think, like, all those people came out of the kindness of their heart, donated their time for free. I take that seriously, and I don't think I would ask them to come back and say the same thing for free again. I would, if I felt like that conversation drastically needed to be had in a way that's not currently happening, I would maybe upload it to YouTube or something, make it accessible. I feel like that will happen eventually when it makes sense to. But personally, the way I encourage people in Toronto has changed too, where I used to kind of be like, guys, if we all do this, like, that's what it is, and like, we need to be on the same page, and da 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 da. And what I've kind of realized is it just comes back to personal accountability. And there are people who are doing that. There's people who are friends of mine that pre-Interpose conducted business differently from how they did post, and I've seen their rates increase. I've seen the quality of their living increase, and that has nothing to do with the event itself. It has to do with them finally going, I'm worth it. And I feel empowered to speak to that. And as soon as that works for you once or twice, you get hooked and you never stop doing that. But if you're afraid to do it, or something shakes your confidence in that, then you kind of just keep maintaining the same thing that you do. And like, that's not like a perfect example of that is like people who, oh, it's a gig I don't really care about. Well, like, if they pay me this much, I'll do it. So I'll ask, is very different than, oh man, this like great opportunity with this person that's like, it would be so good to have them like on my resume and on my reel, but like they want me to do it for free, or like they want me to do it for $100, and like it's a lot of work, and like I think I'm just gonna do it anyway. And I'm like, you can do that, and I'm not gonna shame you for doing that. Maybe that's like the dream of your life. I don't know the details. I don't know your story. I don't know you. But for me personally, and what I choose to do is, in those moments, like I recently got asked to do a music video, choreograph a music video for an artist. He's like got some momentum and stuff like that, and he's very talented, and I'm like, cool. And then the whole time we're talking about it, and like, cool team. I like the people I'm working with. I like the treatment. I really like the concept. The song's good. I can't help but notice that no one's bringing up money. And they were like, yeah, well, like, it's really tight, and like, we can only give you this. And it was like not acceptable. And so politely and professionally, you know, my response is, I totally get that. I really like the team. I really like the thing. Just for me and my needs, and like, in order for it to really be worth my time, because, you know, we're looking at this rehearsal, this time on set, all this time on prep. It doesn't really make sense for me to do it for that amount of money. So like, if that's all you get, I totally get it. I'm just not your guy. This is like the absolute lowest I would ever do for this kind of situation. And the only reason I would go that low is because I do like all this other stuff. If you can't do that, totally understand. Best of luck.
Yeah.
Day later, yeah, we can totally do that. Thanks. Love to have you. Here's the details. And like, but the thing is, and I'm not saying that's what's always going to happen, but you have to be prepared to put yourself out there like that. And like, sometimes they're like, yeah, no, but a lot of the time they just don't fucking answer you. And that sucks. And that honestly is not fun, but it's also so entirely necessary, you know, like that. And that's what I talk about, being willing to put yourself out there without control of the outcome. Be blatantly honest, be so transparent, and be okay with the fact that you have no control over what happens next. I'm glad that it worked out in that instance. And like, those are great people that I got to work with. But if they said no, I wouldn't have changed my response. I wouldn't have come back with a new offer. I would have just been like, okay, peace out. So going back to Interpose, it's like, what I've realized is there are people that you can follow their example, and you can, if you look around, you'll find them. You can ask them. They're approachable. If you need advice, they will talk to you. So like, do we really need another thing saying all the same shit? Or do we just need to be like, the information's out there, fucking use it.
Or find it.
If you don't know where to look, ask. Yeah. Ask people who are doing the shit that you think you want to be doing, right? And so instead of putting my effort into continuing this conversation, I just put my effort into being an example. And if people want to look at it, they can. There's a lot of other people doing the exact same thing. And hopefully other people are encouraged to join that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of encourage, what has been the hardest part about encouraging dancers to uphold standards, especially if they're now aware of it, you know?
That's one thing that was really frustrating about Interpose is like, you know, you had the people, like I talked to so many people that were like, yeah, like they offered me this, and like I talked to them about this and educated them, and then I told them I want this much and they just did it. And I was like, fuck yeah, that's what's up. But there are also lots of people who were present and very passionate, helped promote the event, helped like talked about how impactful it was, like posting about it afterwards. And then like I see them on fucking Instagram like a month later doing this gig that I know isn't paid, for people that I know have money and resources, or if they don't, at some point they will. Maybe they're doing it too quickly to have it right now, but like, it's people who for sure aren't getting paid that were saying how important this work is, that for whatever their reason was, whether it's like something on their resume or a choreographer they wanted to work with, whatever it is, they just turn their back on it, and they turn their back on what I thought they valued. And the thing is, I don't know, maybe they had a really good reason. Maybe I don't have all the information, so I'm willing to leave that with room for doubt. But the way that like I was saying, the way I've encouraged people in Toronto has changed, because you cannot be responsible for if someone listens or if they make the right decision. It's not your job to babysit people. It's not your job to do anything other than make sure your actions are aligned with your words. And when you become aware of something that is not in sync, you do something about it. And so I kind of stopped making an effort to vocally engage in the community. And I'm happy doing what I'm doing. And if people care to look, at least when they look over, I know I'm presenting what I want to present. Nice. And I think if everyone just did that, we would maybe see a big change. You know, just knowing what you care about, knowing who you really are, valuing that, putting it at the forefront, and consistently working at building and growing what that is and making it visible.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for people who struggle with confidence in themselves?
I do, because that is a hard one for me still to this day. I have a lot of tools to help me manage those feelings, but like, you know, even what you're saying about like not feeling qualified, like I still have days where I'm like, who the fuck am I? Do I really like, you know, I have my doubts and I have my fears and I have my stuff, and like I talk very confidently, but like when I'm at home and I'm looking at this email, I'm like, fuck, how do am I really, you know? And one thing that like really transformed my life, and like I would definitely recommend it for anyone, whether you're a dancer or not, just like the power of affirmations are incredible. If you figure out just some empowering phrases that maybe you don't feel reflect who you are or where you are, but they reflect the person you aspire to be, just like taking time every day to like say those sentences out loud as the present test. Like, I am this, I am whatever the outcome is, whatever the quality you want to enhance. I am confident, I am confident, I am confident. I believe in myself. I am enough. I trust myself. I'm worth it. I am valued, and I'm valued and compensated for my talents. Even stuff like that. Like, you'd be amazed at the change that can bring. And even more, if you want to just bring it to like an even more practical thing than that, although that's pretty practical, I always tell people when they ask about confidence to write 10 things they love about themselves every night before they go to sleep, or when they first wake up, or really both would be the most effective. But sometimes, like, I started doing that when I was around, I don't know, maybe 19, which just speaks to like, at no point before 19 did I ever truly feel confident. And the first time you try to do it, it could take you an hour, and you might like fucking pull your hair out, or like have to walk away and come back to it, or take a break or whatever. Or you might fucking break down because you're so overwhelmed coming face to face with like how much you don't love yourself, which is also terrifying. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and the more you start to see those things, and you look at your day being like, oh, I really love how I handled that. Oh, I'm really happy. And it's not an ego thing. It's not a boosting yourself. Well, it is boosting yourself, but like in a healthy way with consciousness, right? It's like acknowledging what you do well, acknowledging what you have that you like. And the more you focus on that, the more you find, right? Mm-hmm. So like what used to take me an hour, like I could sit down 30 seconds to a minute, whip out 10 things that I like love about myself. And I don't think that's ego. I think that's self-care. I think that's healthy to see your value. Like, how can you ask if you don't see the value in yourself as a person, how do you see the value and have the confidence as a dancer to ask for money? You know, like if you don't think you're enough, how do you think your skills are enough? And if you think you're enough because of your skills, I would definitely question that and ask you to go back to that confidence exercise.
Nice.
Yeah.
We're in the home stretch.
Holy moly.
What advice do you have to your generation and any upcoming generations to stay motivated?
To stay motivated. It's something that I do pretty inherently, so I sometimes forget to vocalize this. But like, who you surround yourself with is everything. Mm. And if you want to be motivated, surround yourself with motivated people. You know, like I definitely have, like I said, I still have days or weeks or a month where I'm just like, man, like I'm working so hard and like I don't feel like putting more energy in right now. And I go to my friend who's like working her ass off, and she's like, I get that, and you should take today to rest, but tomorrow, like, you should think about this, and like, what do you feel stuck on right now? Or if you feel burnt out, fucking take some time to take care of yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. But like I have like this circle of people that is very small that I know I can talk to anything about, and I will be transparent with them, and they will spit truth back at me, and that will immediately make clear what I need to do. Mm. And even if it's the part, and usually it's at the part where I don't want to do the next step, that I need to check in, and they're like, yeah, that sucks, but like, you got to do it. And like, if you need support, here's how I can support you, or here's how you can support yourself, or even just being like, damn, that's hard, bro, but like, you can do it. That's often enough.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't have those people. And I've definitely had periods in my life where I haven't been fortunate enough to lean on the people. Like, I haven't felt like I had people I could lean on in that way. And I totally get that. But that's when you need to step up and be that for yourself, right? Like, again, it's all comes back to accountability. Like, there's no excuses other than what you permit, you know? Even the things out of your control, you have control over how you respond to them. So it's like, if you don't feel like you have that support group, then when you're in your best fucking mood, you're going to write a note to yourself. You're going to have those, like, I have sticky notes of affirmations taped to like my piano, to my bathroom mirror, to my bedroom mirror. I've got them on my stove. I used to have one on like my toilet seat. Like, these are things that like remind me of what I'm chasing, what I'm excited about, and like why I'm pursuing, not just what I'm pursuing, but why I'm pursuing. I have like my goals list. I've got my yearly goals. I've got my monthly goals. I've got my 6-month goals, and I check in with those all the time. And like, I don't always hit all of them every year, but knowing what they are and keeping those fresh in my mind remind me what I'm working towards and why I'm excited about that. And that's also a huge thing, is being excited about what you're pursuing. Mm-hmm. If you are not like, if you don't care about or think what you're doing is like fucking rad, why would anyone else? And like, again, the asterisk in that is like, you know, you're gonna have moments of self-doubt where you're like, everything I do sucks. And that's when you need to look at those sticky notes and you need to be reminded of like, no, like I've got something to offer and I need to do it. But you just, at the end of the day, like, do what you love. And if what you love changes, change what you're doing, you know? Yeah.
If 16-year-old Thomas was in front of you, what advice would you give him?
I would say just like, trust yourself, man. Trust yourself. Trust what you have to say. You're not always going to be right, but at least by saying it, you're going to figure out where you're wrong a whole lot faster. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Any new exciting news that you'd like to share? What's
coming up?
Yeah, what's next?
What's next? I just had this video come out that I worked on with Caroline Tordy and Fab at Hallowed Grounds. They are awesome. They produced this video that I got to dance in and work on with them. It's called People on Streets. It's on Hallowed Grounds. It's fun. I really like it. You might not. That's okay.
Go see it. It's phenomenal, guys. Production quality, everything was great.
Me and Roy like it, so maybe you'll like it too. I've got some stuff coming up that I can't really talk about. But there's stuff that's been in the works for almost a year now, and I'm excited to be able to share that hopefully soon. Mm-hmm. Stuff that I've been self-producing and like working on with a team that I'm stoked about. But yeah, I can't really talk about it. So if you would like to hear about it, you can follow me on the things.
On the things.
I'm on most of them. I wish I was still on Vine. I wish Vine still existed. Moment of silence for Vine. But
I almost forgot about Vine.
Vine was the best, man. But yeah, just I tend to not talk about things in advance. So if you want to know when things are happening, you can follow me on the things.
And we'll put how you can follow him on the things.
All the things.
Thomas, always a pleasure, man.
Thank you so much, Roy.
For those of you who are listening, obviously a lot of really great information on this episode. And if you feel to continue that conversation with Thomas, be sure to contact him on the things.
Follow Dance Plug on the things too. And the podcast thing especially.
Yeah. We've got, man, I'm just like trying to like think back over this like last episode, and I can think of maybe 10 to 15 quotes, and you're gonna have a hard time narrowing it down to 3, buddy. So yeah, continue that conversation wherever you guys are listening from. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. If there's anything particular that you like about the episode, feel free to share it. You know, it doesn't hurt to share that information with everyone.
100%.
My name is Rory Bonozo, host of the Unplugged podcast, and we will see you guys next week.
Yeah.
Peace.